Imagine watching a living legend reduced to tears on stage. Not from grief, but from the sheer power of music and the lives it has touched. That's exactly what happened when Phylicia Rashad honored gospel icon Richard Smallwood, a moment that left everyone in the audience breathless. But behind those tears is a story of history, struggle, and triumph in a world that often underestimated the power of gospel music. Today we're diving into the unforgettable night, the legacy of Richard Smallwood, and why this moment is more than just a tribute. It's a lesson in perseverance, artistry, and the unshakable influence of gospel music. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're taking a deep look at a moment that transcended music and touched the soul of everyone present. Phylicia Rashad honoring gospel legend Richard Smallwood. You might know her from her iconic roles on stage and screen, but in this moment, she wasn't acting. She was moved to tears by a lifetime of artistry, dedication, and the transformative power of gospel music. Richard Smallwood isn't just any musician. He's a composer, pianist, and choir director whose work has shaped the sound of contemporary gospel for decades. His influence spans from choirs in Washington, D.C. to stages worldwide. Yet few truly understand the journey that brought him to this moment of recognition. In this video, we'll explore three key areas. First, the historical significance of Smallwood's contributions to gospel music. Second, the unforgettable event where Phylicia Rashad publicly honored him. And third, the life lessons embedded in his story that can inspire artists and music lovers alike. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this wasn't just a tribute. It was a celebration of resilience, creativity, and legacy. And stick around, because in just a few moments, we'll uncover a behind-the-scenes detail about that night that left the audience completely stunned. A detail that very few media outlets are talking about. To truly understand the impact of Richard Smallwood, we need to go back to where it all began. Born in 1948 in Atlanta, Georgia, Smallwood displayed a natural gift for music from an early age. His upbringing was deeply rooted in the church, and, like many gospel legends, his first encounters with music came through the hymns and spirituals sung in his local congregation. But what set him apart wasn't just talent, it was discipline and an insatiable curiosity about the art of music itself. He eventually enrolled at Howard University, a historic institution known not only for its academic excellence, but also for cultivating African American arts and culture. Smallwood studied classical piano and composition, but what's remarkable is how he blended those formal Eurocentric musical traditions with the deeply emotional and spiritual elements of gospel. This fusion would later define his signature sound, a mix of technical mastery and raw, heartfelt expression that could make audiences both weep and rejoice in the same moment. During his time at Howard, Smallwood formed the Howard University Chorale, which became a proving ground for his innovative approach. He pushed boundaries, encouraging students to explore harmonies, rhythms, and vocal techniques that were unconventional for gospel at the time. Imagine a classroom where classical theory met the intensity of church choir. This was Smallwood's laboratory, and he was both the teacher and the visionary. But his journey wasn't without challenges. The music world, even within the church, often resisted change. Critics questioned whether a gospel choir could incorporate classical elements without losing its soul. Many traditionalists preferred straightforward hymns and spirituals, yet Smallwood persisted. He believed deeply that gospel music wasn't just entertainment. It was about connecting people to something higher, to their faith, and to their own humanity. By the time he left Howard, Richard Smallwood had already started to leave a mark on the gospel scene. His compositions were not only technically impressive, but emotionally transformative, and this combination would make him a legend decades later. Fast forward to that unforgettable Sunday and the Crumden Auditorium at Howard University, the day that would mark a turning point not just for Richard Smallwood, but for the entire gospel music community. This was the first presentation of the Howard University Gospel Choir under Smallwood's direction, and the stakes were higher than anyone could imagine. At the time, the country was in turmoil. Social unrest, political chaos, and cultural shifts created an atmosphere of uncertainty for students and faculty alike. Finding moments of joy, unity, and inspiration was crucial. Smallwood's choir offered exactly that. Phylicia Rashad, who was in the Department of Drama when Smallwood was in music, recalls this day with tears in her eyes, even decades later. She explains how, despite limited personal interaction with Smallwood, his presence was transformative. The choir didn't just perform, they commanded the space. The audience, which included some of the most prominent matrons of Washington, D.C. society, was on its feet before the first quarter of the performance ended. Minks and elegant attire were suddenly secondary to the overwhelming spiritual experience happening in the auditorium. Hands were raised, voices sang in unison, and energy filled every corner of that historic hall. What made this performance extraordinary wasn't just the music itself, but the meticulous preparation behind it. Smallwood's disciplined rehearsal process ensured that every note, every breath, and every harmony was executed with precision. Yet, despite the technical mastery, the choir's performance felt effortless, natural, and deeply human. This balance of professionalism and heartfelt worship is exactly what sets Smallwood apart. He had a rare gift, the ability to elevate those around him, drawing out the best in each performer while keeping the focus on the collective spiritual experience. Rashad reflects on the cultural significance of this moment. At a time when African American voice majors were discouraged or even prohibited from singing spirituals for formal assessments, Smallwood created a space where gospel music was celebrated, not marginalized. This wasn't just a concert, it was a bold statement. It was a reclamation of musical identity, a fusion of artistry and faith, and a demonstration that gospel music could rival any classical performance in complexity, emotion, and impact. The audience's reaction was electric. Women ran up and down the aisles, hands raised high, caught in the communal wave of praise. This wasn't simply admiration for Smallwood's technical skill. It was reverence for the way his music could unite people across backgrounds, bridging the university community and the broader Washington, D.C. society in a shared spiritual experience. Rashad emphasizes how Smallwood's approach was so accessible yet so grand. He didn't rely on spectacle or showmanship. Instead, his power came from authenticity, preparation, and a profound understanding of music as a vessel for worship. And here's where the suspense deepens. While Smallwood's debut was a triumph, it also marked the beginning of challenges that Smallwood would face as a rising gospel icon. As his reputation grew, so did expectations and scrutiny. How would he maintain artistic integrity while navigating the pressures of a rapidly evolving music industry, societal expectations, and the spiritual responsibilities placed upon him? This tension between rising fame and maintaining authenticity would shape the next chapter of his career and leave a lasting impression on everyone who followed his journey, including Phylicia Rashad, who often revisits this memory to remind herself of the profound impact of his music. Beyond the grandeur of live performances and the historic debut at Howard University, Richard Smallwood's influence extends deeply into the personal lives of those who experienced his music. For Phylicia Rashad, it wasn't just about technique or harmonies, it was about the emotional and spiritual refuge that his music provided. She recalls a moment years later, during a difficult period in her career in New York theater, when a friend handed her a cassette tape of Smallwood's work, specifically the song I Love the Lord. At first, Rashad didn't even know who the artist was. She simply listened, drawn to the power, clarity, and hope imbued in the performance. That song, she explains, became a lifeline. Each note, each chord progression seemed to echo a promise that no matter how challenging life became, faith and love could carry you through. It was more than music. It was a lifeline, a spiritual anchor, and a reminder that God's presence could be felt through art. Smallwood's compositions, such as Total Praise and Center of My Joy, have had transformative effects on countless people around the world. These songs are carefully constructed, blending traditional gospel harmonies with classical elements, yet their accessibility allows anyone, regardless of musical training, to connect with the message. The lyrics themselves are affirmations, words that resonate with anyone navigating hardship, seeking hope, or longing for a reminder of God's presence. Rashad emphasizes how Smallwood's genius lies in this duality, technically complex, yet spiritually nourishing and emotionally relatable. The power of Smallwood's music is also evident in the communal aspect it fosters. Choirs, congregations, and listeners are drawn into a shared experience where individual struggles are acknowledged, yet the collective voice rises in unison. Rashad highlights the physical manifestation she has observed. Audiences move to tears, spontaneous applause, raised hands, and even moments where listeners are compelled to stand mid-performance, overwhelmed by the beauty and spiritual depth of the music.